Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Darren. I'm Dean of the Ourso College of Business here at LSU, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our Symposium, AI in Action, Leading Innovation in Louisiana Industries Symposium. Before we begin, though, I really, on behalf of the college, want to thank everybody for their attendance today. For those that are coming from out of state, I can assure you we're usually not this cold. But thank you for braving the weather and making it here. Also, before we begin, I want to send out a special thanks for our team that put this together. Danielle Basilica leads our external relations team within the College of Business, and she and her team single-handedly coordinated this event. So Danielle, thank you to you and your team for all that you've done. So it goes without saying that artificial intelligence is transforming the world around us, reshaping how businesses operate, how policymakers make decisions, how we create, even how we receive healthcare. Louisiana's economy is deeply rooted in industries like healthcare, energy, education, manufacturing, and entertainment, and AI is already making a profound impact in these crucial sectors. Louisiana is not just adapting to AI, we're working to lead AI-driven innovation. Just last week, Louisiana Economic Development announced the launch of Louisiana Innovation, or LAIO, a new division dedicated to fostering high-growth, technology-enabled startups across our state. Their first initiative is a $50 million Louisiana Growth Fund to help innovators establish and scale AI-driven businesses right here in Louisiana. And this is exciting because we have a statewide AI strategy that signals that Louisiana is serious about adopting AI-driven innovation, economic growth, and opportunities for businesses of all sizes throughout the state. One of our core strategic objectives in the Ourso College of Business is to serve as a center of subject matter expertise for business communities across Louisiana. And that's why we felt it was critical to host this symposium to begin the process of bringing together industry leaders, academics, policymakers, and entrepreneurs in an effort to explore how AI is changing the way we work, innovate, and build the future of Louisiana. We understand that it is our responsibility to go beyond the classroom, which is why I'm thrilled to have you all here today. We're pleased to have representatives here from across the state of Louisiana and from multiple university campuses, and I sincerely thank you for coming today. We also look forward to learning more about how each of you are leveraging AI and how you plan to do so in the future. And in that spirit, I would like to share, or take a brief moment to share how LSU and the Ourso College are preparing our students by supporting research and collaborating with industry to drive innovation with AI. We're equipping our students with the skills needed to lead in the digital age and meet critical workforce needs with the addition of new AI-focused courses like the one on prompt engineering launched this fall, which is a fully online course designed to give students hands-on experience with AI-powered large language models like ChatGPT. This course is open to all students from all majors, making AI education more accessible across our campus. Additionally, our LSU Provost, Roy Haggerty, has co-taught an innovative course that pairs students with local businesses and entrepreneurs and tasks them with utilizing AI to develop new innovative solutions to pressing business challenges. LSU business students also are leading the charge. We have students here today with us, Riley Hudson and Nicholas Osborne, who recently launched a student-led Ourso College organization focused on developing student competencies in blockchain and AI. And in following the footsteps of a number of our notable business alums, they recently founded Prismera, an AI company automating bottlenecks in commercial real estate by reducing lease abstraction times by up to 95% compared to traditional methods. So sorry to put you guys on the spot, but and one of the Ourso College's premier events is the J. Terrell Brown Venture Challenge. This is a venture challenge where we help student businesses and students launch their businesses. And this year we helped the student-funded business FarmSmart secure $20,000 in seed funding to bring their AI-powered innovation to Louisiana's farmers. By leveraging AI, FarmSmart is helping optimize crop management, bringing technology with agriculture in a way, or bridging technology with agriculture in a way that benefits our state's economy. Our business faculty are leading important conversations for fostering critical thinking and the real-world application of AI. Dr. Andrew Schwartz, Andy's in the back, is a professor in the Stevenson Department of Information and Entrepreneurship and has been a leading voice in AI's potential. He has traveled across Louisiana speaking at on AI's impact and the importance of embracing it while balancing regulations. Dr. Schwartz is here and will also be leading a critical discussion later on for one of our panels. And last year, our Department of Marketing's Professional Sales Institute hosted its largest ever sales symposium, focused on harnessing AI for peak sales performance, and attendees explored AI-powered sales forecasting, predictive analytics, and automation, gaining insights into how AI is shaping customer interactions and business growth. Finally, this past year, U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy co-taught a seminar with faculty member Roy Heidelberg, which explored AI ethics and regulation. Senator Cassidy has been a key voice in federal AI policy, and this course provided business students with a front row seat to AI governance and discussions that we will explore later on today with Dr. Heidelberg. Clearly, AI isn't just a topic of discussion here at LSU and at Ourso College. We believe that it's fundamentally changing both businesses and business education. We are committed to equipping our students and the broader community with the skills and knowledge to lead in a technology-driven world. And our endeavors are rooted in LSU's Scholarship First agenda. And as you'll see today, our partners across LSU are providing essential thought leadership in AI throughout our disciplines. And with that, I'm excited to kick off with our keynote speaker. So our keynote speaker today is Darren Haas. Darren is a trailblazer in artificial intelligence and large-scale computing and joins us all the way from California today. Darren has been at the forefront of AI innovation for decades. As a co-founder of Siri, he played a pivotal role in revolutionizing human-computer interaction by building the natural language processing engine that ultimately led to Apple's acquisition of Siri in 2010. And I'm sure if I polled, most of you here have interacted with Siri sometime in your lives, if not earlier today. At Apple, he continued shaping the future of AI, leading the back-end integration of Siri and developing foundational platforms for Apple's internet services. His influence extends far beyond consumer technology. As Chief Technology Officer at GE, Darren spearheaded an edge-to-cloud initiative transforming industrial analytics across aviation, power grids, and healthcare. At Amazon Web Services, he drove enterprise innovation, helping businesses adapt to a rapidly changing world during the pandemic. In 2021, Darren co-founded Voltron Data, driving advancements in high-performance data analytics with Apache Arrow. And beyond his corporate achievements, Darren has made an immense social impact as co-founder of Change.org, a platform that has empowered over 500 million users worldwide. He is also an advocate for ethical AI and data democratization, and is an investor in transformative companies like SpaceX, and is an academic collaborator with UC Berkeley. We are honored to have him here today to share his insights and expertise, and please join me in giving a warm welcome to Darren Haas. Darren, the stage is yours.
I actually don't need this. It's freezing here. Yeah, first off, thank you, Dean, and thank you for the tour. And where is Dr. Andrew Schwartz? Hey, thank you. Again, he gave me an opportunity to speak to 3 different groups. So the undergrads, faculty, and then the MBA program. So what's awesome is I got to try to run through this 3 times, so it should be pretty good. So let's jump in. What I wanted to do is kind of give you a view into my life in the journey in AI, because it takes a long time to get there. You can't just pick it up right away. I can't take credit for this, but so Louisiana was the first place where AI came to existence. IE. So if you're not familiar with that, too bad, because that's awesome. And then, thank you, Richard. And then next, I wanted to talk, I've never done a keynote where I talked about family. So it's the first time that I've done this. And because my family supported me through all these journeys, you'll see. Like I went from startup to, failed, and then to starting my own company, and then trying another company, and losing funding, and then going, starting Siri, and no one believed in that, and So my family helped me the whole way. But there's another piece. When I got here, I've been visiting Covington and New Orleans, and now Baton Rouge. Like every single person that I've met here is treating me like family. So thank you all. Like all the small businesses, big businesses, see some faces, so thank you so much. Like I got like hugs from students yesterday. It was awesome. So some of the companies that I've worked at, I'm currently with Thin Air, which I don't know if Jeremy is here. This guy right here, he's the boss. He's an alum too. So I actually quit my startup, Voltron Data, to come work with him here. And it's a, Louisiana-based tech organization, and I'll get more into that later. Okay, I'll try to get through these fairly quick. 2000, you guys remember this is year 2000. And I joined a startup fairly early, and they're like, hey, you can talk to your remote control. And I thought that was totally amazing. For the MBA class, I talked about it yesterday, there was no market fit. People were like, why would you ever want to talk to your remote control? Like, that's the stupidest idea ever. So essentially it was like, we were too early. Spent 2 years there, about 2.5. We knew it was the future, we just were like gonna come back to it at some point. My mentor and the creator, his name's Adam Shire, was the one that I learned a lot around natural language processing. And if we go to Q&A, I can explain a little bit more about NLP versus Gen AI. But then we had to pivot the company. And we actually did do natural language processing for Salesforce. That's like, you could use your BlackBerry, that ages me, and you could say, show me accounts closing next week greater than 5 million. And it would actually parse it. It would convert the natural language to SQL, which most folks know, and then it would bring it back in that natural language format and say, like, here's your list of accounts. We were acquired, but not for the amount we raised. But it was cool to see, like, oh, well, voice isn't there, but people are starting to understand natural language processing. Now, after that, I was a little disenfranchised, but I'm like, voice and AI is going to be the future. So I decided to move to financial services, started my own little company. Financial services, during this time, there was a lot going on in the world, right? We had 9/11, there was a tech bust, we call it the dot-com boom, or bust. And I was like, financial services is safe, I'm gonna focus here. The takeaway from this, and even the focus, is this is where I realized coding and what you do and the time you spend and being very articulate and focused matters, because somebody screwed up a float and it cost the bank $60 million one day. So that's the first time where I was like, oh, you put in bad code, really bad things can happen. And I'll get into more of that. Then, wait, did it go? Hold on, go back 1 second. That's right. So, my mentor I talked about previously, that we were working on the remote controls, calls me up and goes, no more talking remote control. We want to make an actual assistant. Someone that's gonna be like a secretary for you. And I was like, okay, let's do this. So I worked for SRI International as like a 1099, and another guy in Switzerland named Didier was working for them as well. So we would do what's called follow the sun coding. So I would code during the day, and he would code during my night, and we built the first Siri prototype. But it was web-based, right? So you're typing in to like, it looked kind of like a Google, but that kind of came to kick us in the butt. I'll talk about that. But I really did use my laptop from my garage. So like, that's kind of and honored to like Steve and Bezos working in the garages. So I really did code in my garage. The timing around this is like, do any of you remember like Drag and Dictate? It was like starting to come out on laptops, and I was like, oh, voice is starting to come along, and that's great. So we then formed the company, raised our Series A. Again, timing, 2008, 2009, that was like a pretty hard time to raise funding, financial crisis, things like that. But a really cool thing happened then. The iPhone App Store launched, and we're like, whoa. I really think this was an inflection point. I talk about this a little bit later. We now have a device that's driving ubiquity. And essentially now, if you think it's good or bad, it's an extension of your arm. You always have it with you, it's always around you. So we're like, oh, well, let's switch from being on the laptop to go on mobile. And also, here's a kind of a takeaway I want to call out, is why we were pitching venture capitalists, that this is 2008, they're saying, why don't we just use Google? But back then in Google, if you said, find me an Italian restaurant, in Oakland, it would just show you pictures of like Italian food. Because it was word search, right, if you used Google back then. So we actually built a side-by-side demo to show what natural language processing meant. So Siri would actually return on a web page like open table results. And you could even say table for four, and it had context awareness. It was awesome. I mean, our first versions were amazing. This was a big piece. This is like, I wanted to share some really cool tidbits that no one knows. You're gonna get to hear some pretty funny stories too. So our software on the previous phone, I think it was the 3G, did not run fast enough. It could not handle Siri. We're like, uh-oh. And then the 3GS came out. And I just found out the other day that S means speed. I thought it was just another one of those like 4S, 5S, but actually it means speed, according to Gemini, if it works. But then we're like, oh, we're gonna crush this. But again, what was the business outcome? We need people to interact with a device with their voice. We still didn't know if it was gonna work. So we moved everything to mobile, all mobile development. But we still kept it very simple for anyone that's like an engineer in the room. We used WebKit, so it was still a web browser, but we used Nuance as the way to get from the speech to the text back to the phone, and then we'd send that off to, gosh, how do I even explain this? Back then, like Amazon Web Services and the clouds, they were just one compute in storage. That was it. There was nothing else. You had to build everything yourself. That was a lot of fun. But this is a cool one everyone asks. Then it was time to name the product. How did Siri, the name, come upon? I've heard a lot of different stories. The real truth is, we were all tasked with writing names down on a board, on a whiteboard, and then we were gonna vote. We had I loved Monica, because we wanted to be personal, right? All these different names got written to Iris. Funny enough, what is Iris backwards? Think about that. I don't think the CEO thought of that, but he was Norwegian and he came up with Siri. And it's a very easy name to say. That one immediately everyone's like, we're just gonna go with that. And it's stuck, which is, I'll get into the cool argument I had with Steve Jobs about that. This slide is great. Okay, this is gonna be a lot about my life. So we launch in the App Store, right? Flew to the top. unreal. We're like, oh my gosh, like people do want to talk to their phones. Again, we didn't know. Like, I was already told no in 2000 to 2002. Now in 2010, people were talking to their phone. We hit almost 1 million downloads on the App Store, so we just like took it over. We were #1 for months. And I kid you not, Steve Jobs drove to our office. We were about like 14 people, and he showed up. The head of QA got pale-faced and passed out. She was so nervous. So now we got like Steve Jobs here. We're like, oh gosh, what do we do to help this person? And like but it was just it was a really great experience, right? Like he actually drove himself and was like, I'm gonna buy your company. A big takeaway here was Steve, you know, when he was talking to us, he's like, when I saw your app, he goes, this is the future, right? He goes, voice is the new input modality. He's like, I have thought about this for years. No one's ever built anything like this. But it was funny, he's like, well, I kind of brought touch to the world, and I want to bring voice to the world, and a personal assistant. So again, that was like a huge inflection point. So this is pertaining now. He's come in, he's like, we want to buy the company. We're like, okay, great. Then you start the negotiations, all that fun stuff. And in March, he decided that, because I think it was end of quarter, the board and him had to approve on the Siri app. And this gets pretty crazy. I've never shared this. I kid you not, my wife was on the delivery table. I got a call from Steve Jobs and our CEO, and they said, the systems better be up. Today they're gonna figure out if they're gonna buy the company. So I'm sitting there with my wife on the delivery table with 2 laptops just staring at like, how do I keep this up? Oh God, like, and then they hang up, they call back, and they're like, okay, the board approved it. And I was like, whew, thank gosh. And they're like, you should call your daughter Siri, because we knew it was a girl. And I was like, no, but and I'm actually glad we did, because you guys know when you say, hey, that person, your phone's gonna go off. So like my poor daughter, like every phone would have went off whenever someone called her name. But a really good thing is, at that point, we then said, okay, we have to natively integrate with iOS. So it's not just like an external app. When you're an external app, you don't get as many capabilities. Like with most hardware vendors, if you're not natively embedded in the phone, you lose a lot of, you know, cool features, really cool features. So that was another piece where like, now we're gonna get to the masses. And I think by then they had 40 million, 50 million users. Scared the heck out of us. He's like, you got a year to get this live. And I wish I had a picture. Literally, we were running off of Baker racks, $180 computers to run Siri. And he's going, you gotta be live for 40, 50 million users. I can't cuss, but he cussed a lot. So I said, Steve, like, you run iTunes. Again, this is 2010. So iTunes, you just buy music. Then you have the App Store, and you're just buying apps. Those are binaries. So they use CDNs, right? If you've heard of like Akamai, companies like that. So you don't really need big data centers. So I told Steve, for a lot of people, you don't have anything like this. When you talk to the phone, it streams to a server and holds a core, because it's doing the interpretation. Then we have to build an acoustic model. That's how we determine who's talking. And then we have to run all these microservices. So like we were running a distributed environment. They had nothing like that. So he said, welcome to the MFing candy store. Go do what you gotta do. So I went and spent billions. Did a ton of data centers. But it was really cool because everyone's like, do you have budget for this? I'm like, Steve said. They're like, okay. So I just used his name the whole time. It was awesome. But we were so excited that we're now going to be on all these phones, but also very scared, right? Where I think it was myself and 2 other people managing all of DevOps and engineering, and you're going, oh gosh, 50 million users, day 1, too. Back then, they didn't roll out what you guys see. Like, it's like software update available, and they'll do it like regionally. This was real time, they launch it, you get to use it, and I have another good one that I haven't shared before on that. So at Apple, that's what I was mentioning. So now we're natively building ourselves into the phone. So we get a lot more access to all these cool things. Steve, in a meeting with myself, the CEO, by the way, the CEO of Siri is brought in as a VP of Motorola. That comes to success, right? I was a young, coder. My mentor is a CTO. He's one of the fathers of AI. But Dog was, brought in, like, we need a senior leader, senior CEO. Super important, and when we get a fireside chat, we'll talk about the importance of, like, a seasoned CEO, or someone that's been in a leadership role, right? It is so important. So he came in, and we're in a room with Steve and some other folks, and Steve goes, oh, okay, we're gonna get ready to launch. What are we gonna call this? We're like, we're gonna call this Siri. And he's like, no, we're gonna call this like iTalk. We're gonna call it like iMic or something. And then he said, if you any network people here, he goes, and we're gonna call it Apple Talk. I like that one. So I'm like, raise my hand. I'm like, Apple Talk is a network protocol. And he looks at me and he's like, he goes, that's true, thank you. But then I kind of chimed in, I'm like, it needs to be someone you talk to, like, again, a personal assistant. That's why I was surprised. I love Google's technology. I don't know why they did OK Google. But you saw like Alexa, persona, right? Cortana, persona, Siri, persona. It's interesting some of the other ones just didn't take that approach. Timing. This one can get a little sensitive to me and to a lot of other people who, if anyone worked at Apple. We launched Siri to the world on October 4th. Does anyone know what happened on October 5th? Steve Jobs died. Yes. So the whole company is trying to figure out, what are we going to do? And we just launched this product. So his sister was there with him, and I believe his wife was around. And the family sent us, the Siri team, a letter saying he got to see it the day before. And that just, that invigorated that whole team. Like, we were like, oh, we got to see it. Like, because he was our biggest sponsor. Like, he hit us. So people don't know, some people think Siri was just part of Apple. They didn't know it was a company before. Because we always kind of kept under the radar. And when we were acquired, no one knew that Apple acquired us for a whole year. Because they stuck us behind 3 doors, 2 elevators, like NSA stuff. But here's a key takeaway, and it kind of, I wish I could show that someone built for my birthday a ChatGPT model on me, which is way intense. My son talked to me for 5 minutes through a model. But Apple, people that don't believe they're into privacy, hardcore. People go, why isn't Siri getting better? None of us were allowed to ask or see what anyone was asking, because it's private data. When we were a startup, we even were very careful about it. Because you have to think about, if it's a personal assistant, you're gonna say, remind me to take X medicine, or remind me to get my green card. Like really sensitive things that people are asking. So when Apple saw that, they're like, nope. And you know what that means? Really hard to train models if you don't know what people are asking. So that was a big piece of the innovation. They've gotten a lot better at it. Apple Intelligence, I won't say anything about that. Another big thing is culture matters. We did not leave, when we launched Siri, we didn't leave, I bought COTS. So I was probably a mean boss. Because by this time, the CEO left, right? They get their packages and things like that. And I bought COTS, so we didn't really see the outside. But we're sitting there and we're grinding, we're keeping everything up. Then suddenly, at about 12 to 1 PST, we get 30 million requests at the exact same time. Now, if you know in technology, you can go to Google, you can go to Twitter, X, whatever. No one gets 30 million requests at the same second. Remember, this is speech, so they're holding the connection, right? When you Google search or something or post something, just take a quick, it's a transaction, like OLAP or OLTP. Then at 3 to 4 PST, we started this huge spike. 30 million requests coming in, and we're like, what is going on? And we're still bunkered in, and someone comes in with like a shake from QA, and I'm like, oh, aren't you guys excited about the commercial? We're like, what commercial? And so, Mark, because we're beta, you can go look, like Siri came out as beta, they told us beta. They were running commercials, like peak time, lunchtime, you know, like on the West Coast and then East Coast kind of a little bit later. I think it was more than just 2 times. So I begged our legal department and privacy to do what's called word parting. And I started seeing rock come through. And I was like, rock? And then I went and saw the commercial. If you guys remember the first commercial, Call Me Rock God. And we figured out what was bringing us down is every single person that saw the Siri commercial all picked up their phones and went, Call Me Rock God, like at the exact same time. So, and there was other ones like, you know, get all the sand I want. They had like 5 different types of commercials. But that's a real experience around like scale you can't learn anywhere else. So I loved being at a big company. I felt so fortunate, especially as I had to build out all these data centers, and the CFO took me under his wing. And then the new CFO took me under his wing, which he recently stepped down. So it's kind of went from being like a technologist and leading these teams to now learning a lot more about the business, right? Siri was a cost to the iPhone. Let's say it was $5, right? Because we spent all this money on this infrastructure. How do we get it down to like 20 cents? So then I started working with the CFO on all these things and adding efficiencies, depreciation. Learned a ton about that. From that, Jeff and Mount, some of the execs heard that I had built out, because I started just kind of leading series, like Siri, and then I ran speech, and then we started implementing like GPUs, building neural nets and stuff like that. And the thought of leaving Apple was like really hard, because I was on a rise. They gave me like to manage news, you know, like we built a unified infrastructure. Remember, it went Siri, and I always forget this. Then it went Maps, which, that was not good. That was my boss, and he actually gave me a promo the day he was fired. So that's another cool one. Like I had to walk him to his car. He's like, you've done a great job. Now I have to leave. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, this is my last day. So Maps was really tough on Apple too. And then iCloud came out. When I think back, I'm like, oh, wasn't iCloud before? No. So you had Maps, iCloud, News, all these other ones, and we bought them. Then music, streaming music. And I like to say, and I still have the picture of it, I was peers with Dr. Dre and Trent Reznor in the directory when they bought Beats. So I was like, yes! And I just took like a really cool, screenshot of that. But then I took over like the Beats team. So I was on this cool rise, but then GE came along. They said, we know what you've done at Apple. You're running their internet services. We need someone over here to modernize our technology. Like this, it's time to do something. And getting deeper into AI, because Siri was primitive AI, and then we started adding neural nets, and you'll see more Gen AI coming out of them with Apple Intelligence. So here I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna start looking at AI kind of right out the bat. But again, business outcomes. I'm not just gonna do AI for AI. You're gonna hear a lot of people today talk about probably when to use AI, when not to use AI, things like that. I also got to live in multiple countries. So the sell was like, hey, and I did get a personal driver, which was like, I was blown away by that, and a car. And I was like, oh, I didn't know companies did this. So I got to work with like Jeff Immelt and the CEO of transportation and aviation and healthcare and power. And so I flew, I lived, part-time. This would be crazy. I lived part-time in like Moscow, Africa, Israel, Asia, Middle East, learning. I wanted to learn the businesses. I actually put on the hard hats. I looked at downstream, midstream, upstream. Like I learned about oil and gas. I'm still good friends with the CEO of Baker Hughes. So for me, it was like, now I'm a CTO of these multiple verticals, learning more about business, but still in technology, right? And helping them, where can we apply AI? And the first one that we looked at was amazing. So, is anyone oil and gas here? No, familiar with it? Yeah, yes. So, piggies. Piggies they run through the tubes, right? Yeah, the pipelines. And we're like, hey, we could take some of this video footage and apply AI, we use random forest models, to see any little seam to do like predictive analysis. It was just to show like, here is a business problem that can be solved with like AI. And it actually worked really well. I believe it's still in production now. So that's kind of the piece of like AI, is like when you're evaluating it as business owners. And that just goes, AI isn't for everything. And I'll jump in. So I was at GE. I was so excited. I was like, a little kid in the candy store, about 1,000 direct reports. Maybe at Apple I had like 250. So that for me, this is a big jump in my career. And I was there commuting. It was about 4 hours. I feel bad saying this. I did this for like a year and a half. In the 4 hours, I have 4 kids. I didn't see my kids. I couldn't be like a baseball coach, couldn't be a basketball coach. I couldn't do anything. So I have a boy and 3 girls. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna move. And even though it was only moving, 60, 70 miles, that's still almost moving a state, right? You got a new school, you have to make new friends. So I move, and I'm like, really excited. My commute's now only 5 minutes. And 2 days later, Jeff Immelt is exited from the company. And I'm going, uh-oh. And my wife's like, you just moved our whole family here. And one of your biggest supporters, who I still think is amazing, won CEO of the year twice, is gone. And I was like, okay, let's take a step back. The good thing is they then brought in the CEO of GE Healthcare. His name is John Flannery. And I was reverse mentoring him. I don't know if you call that luck, timing, whatever. So now he's the new CEO. So I'm working with him on like, how do we digitize? Because GE, I believe at any given time has 27,000 planes with their turbines in the air. If you think about that at scale, that is unbelievable. And they would do 10 million miles of track. The numbers are outrageous. But then he only lasted a year, and I joined GE because it's an American company. I wanted my feel like I missed it by almost like 2 years. But it was just an incredible experience. And when the new CEO came in, I could tell by the questions he asked, like they're gonna split it out. And you guys have seen, they now have, you know, a different healthcare. I think it's called GE Space something, like aviation, like they've spun it all out. Transportation went to Wab Tech. So a lot of I was like the kind of the CTO of like the other CTOs were held a consortium. And they all moved off to other companies. And I was like, okay, this is cool. But I spent like $600 million a year on AWS, so they knew me quite well. Because I did the exact opposite I did at Apple. I built data centers at Apple, because there was no real cloud. Then I come to GE and say, we're moving all our data centers to the cloud. Because it wasn't their core competency, right? If you think of GE, you don't think of data centers. You think of turbines. So I spent a lot of time with management saying, we don't have to move it all. There's Fortran and mainframes that have been running since the 80s. And they would tease us. Like the new guy coming in, he's like, this thing's been up. You think 3 nines is good? I got 14 nines. You know, it's been running since 1982. And I was like, that's a pretty good argument. But then that was when AWS came knocking. They're like, you're good at working with C-suites. So they asked me to build, it's not office of the CTO, because the CTO is just, there's only one CTO there, and he's very famous and amazing. So I came in and I hired like CIOs and CTOs from like Fortune 100s. And our job was to go earn trust with the CEOs, CIOs, and CTOs of the Fortune 50s, our biggest accounts, people spending billions on the cloud, but no bias. That was the rule. You earn trust, no bias. Even if, let's say as an example, AWS has Redshift, probably heard of Databricks, or Snowflake. I did not say, you have to go use Redshift. We would test it out. And then I realized with the team, then I wrote a paper on how to like, you know, push this out and how to train on like earning trust and figuring out the best path for all these, you know, companies. Because what I noticed and stumbled across, because I wasn't a business major, was all the CEOs were focused on gross profit margin, right? CapEx reduction, OpEx reduction, and net new revenue. So I hyper-focused on, okay, where can we reduce your costs? And where can you innovate? Because a lot of them weren't innovating, they were just slashing. We're gonna get rid of this consulting, we're not gonna cut this division. And I was like, no, you can move those people to work on something that's gonna generate new revenue, which is very important. That was fun though. Then I got startup itch, one of my closest friends, this guy, Wes McKinney, very famous at MIT. He wrote Pandas. I don't know if you guys, any data science people here, and he wrote Arrow. And he goes, let's do a company together. And we raised way too much money. It's like 110 million Series A. Like, I think it was one of the biggest. And we're like, oh gosh. But the thesis was, because someone in one of the programs, Andrew, asked an amazing question. How do VCs figure out who to invest in? We didn't have the technology. What we did is we said, everyone's buying up GPUs, and we know they're sitting idle. These GPUs can run SQL workloads, and we're gonna figure out how to do it. So they call that deep tech, because we had to use what's called CUDA, so we had to write directly into the GPU to run these huge analytical workloads. So a normal analytical workload of, let's say, 100 terabytes would take hours and hours and hours. On GPUs, 20 minutes. So no one was thinking this, and we're like, why not? So that was, and then I put the Elon issue. I don't know if you've read about it. Like, he's flipping out because they train their LLMs, the power spikes, the machines spike, and then for like 6 to 8 hours, it's not being used at all. So they've written software now around that to fix, I think they have the biggest supercomputer, is my understanding. I got to play with some of the DOE ones that were phenomenal. So we were like, AI's it's going nuts. It was really, especially in 2021, everyone was just AI, crypto. Like, there's gonna be a lot of GPUs out there. So form the company, raise the money. And now we'll get into where I'm at now, which is your alum, Jeremy, which I know he was somewhere, I saw right there. Baton Rouge too, right? Original. So Jeremy came to me, or actually met a friend at a wedding, and he introduced me to someone that lives around here. And he goes, you have to see this technology, you're not gonna believe it. So, like, augmented reality, virtual reality had been around for a while, but augmented reality was still fairly new, right? And I went and I saw what Jeremy had built by himself for the last 2 years. And I was blown away. So I left my job, joined a Louisiana company, and and now we're starting to introduce AI. Things like if your CAD models aren't very properly well done, we use AI to fix those. There's called spatial computing. There's so much you can do. If you saw like a demo, I wish we brought a headset. Did you bring a headset, Richard? Oh, I would bug him. So like, it was like my wife's first video game she ever liked. So she put on the headset, and you will not believe it says, okay, I want to build like an outdoor kitchen. And it is that realistic. In an augmented reality, you see everything around you. And then you turn around, there's like a pool right behind you. And you're like gonna fall in. So Jeremy and I and Richard started building it out. We hired one of the top AI ML people out of Apple. And I mean, we're here. That's a big piece of why I'm here, is because then I started meeting other small businesses and then other people in technology. And I mean, I got to work in Austin, right? And they like took off with Dell, and then Micron, I think, moved there, and all these different companies, Apple, Amazon. Then Atlanta, like Amazon moved in, Meta. Nashville, they did it like too fast. But you all have an opportunity, seriously, to go and take that to the next frontier, right? That's what we'll be talking about that with the panel here. So this is kind of, again, I wasn't born into AI. My degree was communications. I just was so curious about technology. Like, again, kind of always like a kid. Jeremy and myself have what we call beginner's minds. We don't really want to know how something works. We kind of want to try to figure it out ourselves. And when you do that, you create new ideas and new thoughts and new visions. So I was just always like playing with things and trying to build stuff and tinkering. And again, no CS degree, didn't even really start coding until, like hard coding, until maybe mid-20s, like really getting into it. Yes, so now AI is here. That's why we're here. There are lots of great things about AI. So everyone's like, oh, there's negative, there's positive. I want to talk about real quick. How are we looking on time? Perfect. I don't think, it could be controversial or not, but a friend, his father has dementia and can only remember about 5 to 8 minutes. Very depressed, sits at home. The son has to come there all the time to talk, try to keep him busy. What he did was, without making it creepy, he took kind of like built like an extension to an LLM and a phone number. and he put it the phone number like, Dad, call me here. So if he's not there for his son, his dad called this number, and it's talking in his voice to him. And the first time he used it, he spent 8 hours on the phone. The next day he showed up, he said he'd never seen his father so happy in his whole life. So something happened in the back of his head, something, right? Because he's suddenly smiling, so there's a lot of applications out there. I just want to share that one because I've felt, because my grandfather had it really bad. I mean, it was 3 minutes. World War II vet. He's like, when I was a nose gunner, and then when I was a nose gunner, So, and you want to support your family. So these are some of the applications that I want people to think about when, AI. It's like, oh, it's going to do this, it's going to do that. Yeah, but there's also people building incredible products around it. Again, use case is very, very important. I try to carry through that theme. But again, innovation isn't about the next technology. It is, or even new technology. It's about who we build it for. Now, you guys keep noticing I'm having the AI in LA here. You guys got to step up. IE? Okay? And this is just kind of a flywheel of some thoughts that we've had. I've talked with Andrew. LED has a program. I mean, I got to meet with, he's a private equity that's looking to put $100 million into startups here. I mean, you're really at, this here should be your launching pad to go take it. I don't know if you know, but a lot of PEs come in and they buy your best technology. And they take Louisiana companies out of Louisiana. I don't know if the stat's true, this is pretty much anecdotal, but they said, one of the PE guys said they lost 1.8% of the population was pulled by out the Blackstones, the BlackRocks, whoever's buying, these PEs buying all this incredible technology. So I had dinner with a small business owner. He's like, I don't want to sell. I want to grow my company here. I want to be in Louisiana. I was born in Louisiana. So, this really is the time to make it happen. And you have investment coming in. People are, willing to match. There's a lot of credits. I mean, it is amazing. I haven't seen, some states have tried it, and I don't know how it went, but the way that I'm viewing these, it's incredible. I'm learning from Richard a lot. He'll talk about it. But this is just was investment. You got academia. You have, I think Henry I got to meet if he's here. It was cool. Hey, it's cool. He's like, hey, I got 4 students working on this with this company, and I did this and that. And then, I worked at Berkeley and Stanford, and they've built these incubators. I'm like, we could do that here at LSU. You take, you get funding, and you will get it, like the Meta's $10 billion data center. You say, hey, well, give us $1 million, NVIDIA give us $1 million, AMD give us $1 million, that's what we did. And we capped it at 10 companies, and they fund masters, postdocs, to build ideas, and then spin those companies out. And then those companies flourish in Louisiana, and then your economy grows, right? You should go look up, they're called the accidental billionaires. I got to work with a lot of them. Databricks, I worked on what's called Spark, and now, my friend Jan is the richest man in Romania, right? But what they did is you invest in the education and in the students and get them interacting with companies right away. That's why I was stoked to hear what Henry had going and what Andrew wants to just bring it all together. Yeah, I mean, and your workforce development, we'll talk about that too. I call it brain drain. I know some people don't like that, but at GE, it's like, what are we gonna do if some of these people retire? They have all the knowledge to fix, the locomotive. They had to call the guy who was on a golf course. I mean, the motherboard was this long, the transistors like that. He's like, I'll come in for $800. And what are you gonna say? No, the locomotive's not working. Okay, yeah, so we need to use AI and LLMs to build knowledge, right? And maintain that knowledge. Even on I wanted to do something when I was in Zimbabwe, when everyone left the country, they didn't teach them how to run the John Deeres or the Caterpillars. So farming took a crash. That's why you hear about the inflation and stuff like that. Well, imagine the future will be small models that will run on watches or things like that. And then also it's getting very affordable, augmented reality. And they can help you repair these machines, teach you how to operate them. And remember, AI doesn't know an age. You can say, teach me how to, ride a blue whale as if I was 8 years old or something, and it will actually try to teach you how to ride a blue whale at 8. But if you're older, it's might not be a good idea. But it's cool. It doesn't really. There's no prejudice. There's no bias. It just straight up tells you what it thinks an 8-year-old would do. I actually wanted to learn a lot more about astrophysics and some of these missing planets out there. And I asked the question, I was like, oh, I don't understand any of this. I'm like, tell me it like I'm a freshman in high school. I was blown away. Then I was like, oh, I know now about these extra galaxies out there, so it was really cool. And I think now we get to get some friends up here. So I can make the introductions. You guys ready? There we go. So Richard lives in Covington. We drove here, if any of you came from Covington. Richard was the one that introduced me to Jeremy. And then that's Richard Taubman, and then Julian Tandler. He's gonna talk about kind of one of the big failures in startups is go to market. 90% of startups fail because the engineers, even myself, are so wound up tight with their baby that I'm the only one that can sell it, right? And they get destroyed. And Julian was the top he got ranked top global account executive for Salesforce 2 years in a row. You want to talk about grit, that is a grinder. Salesforce, their salespeople are brutal. Some of them, I don't know hopefully you're a good person. I hope we have time to show you some of this stuff. Lots of questions were asked yesterday. All these models coming out. How do I adopt this? How do I implement it into my business? Well, we now have normalized, and no one in the world has it, an operating system that will help you say, oh, I want to test this on this model, and then it will switch to another model, and another model, and another model. And it even can help you, it's called agents, help you even QA your own stuff that you've written, right? It's gonna help you. And that's why with people with AI, it's not displacing, it's the critical thinkers will win. That's the way I like to think of it. If you're a critical thinker and you're ready to adopt AI, you're gonna win. So I can start with what am I starting with? Oh, LA, because I was born in Los Angeles. So Richard, I'll sit down too. So I'm gonna let Richard jump into a few of these here, because it was really cool to have him fly out to Silicon Valley as well.
Well, it's great to be here. Thank y'all so much. This is fun. I'm so stoked about this technology and everything, but I'll give you a quick little story as to why this man right here is here. He did mention the last company he is now with, Thin Air, which I'm affiliated with as well. So I started my AI company a few years back, and I was looking for a developer and found out that one of my clients, I have a marketing firm in Covington, and found out one of my clients actually was a developer. So I reached out to him and I said, hey, I'm starting this AI company and I'd like you to join and so forth, or just learn more about him. And he said, well, I kind of pivoted and started working on the VR space. I was like, okay, that's cool. And he started describing what he had built. And it was like a Friday night. And I was like, well, what are you doing tomorrow? He goes, nothing. So I drove over there and spent 8 hours with him. I mean, the technology that Jeremy built, which he's back there, is just absolutely incredible. It's something I've never seen before. But anyway, that was kind of so my marching orders was to go out and, show the people, get some validation, look for some capital to get started. And so my cousin was getting married. Her name is Bliss McGinnis. She's actually an LSU alumni. And she was getting married. Her family's from here, but she lives in California. And she was getting married to his best friend. And his name is Gunner, by the way. So Bliss and Gunner, perfect match. So they come in, they're getting married last March. They're coming in January to kind of settle things up, and they stay with us. And in the morning they were leaving. I was cooking them breakfast, and I was like, hey, you got to see this thing, And Bliss, I'm telling you, if you ever meet her, she matches her name. She's just a social butterfly. She's amazing. She's like, I can't tell you what she said when she saw it. Yeah, I have about 50 first reaction videos of this, but she's one of them. But anyway, Gunner, when he put it on, he goes, look, I have a lot of friends in Silicon Valley. They're going to be at the wedding. You got to show them this. This is amazing. I want to invest in all this other stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to a wedding to sell this stuff, right? But so it was like a 5-day wedding, all the tours and everything. And appropriately enough, the only one I went to was the day before the wedding, which was a crawfish boil, right? And I saw my brother. He was by the band. It was in New Orleans at the park. And he's like motioned. He's like, come over here. And he was talking to Darren. So we started geeking out on AI stuff or whatnot. And then I was describing this AR, VR stuff. And he's like, oh, well, I'll get you in front of Apple. I was like, what do you mean, what? You mean Apple? He goes, yeah, I know the CFO. I mean, we can make a phone call. And I was like, okay, let's make that happen. So anyway, I wasn't able to show him after the wedding, and so I said, well, look, I'll come out there, and I said, look, I appreciate you saying that, but you haven't even seen it yet, so, but really humble, really nice, really open and sharing and so forth. So I flew out to Danville, California, which, by the way, is beautiful. It's right outside of San Francisco. And so I'm there with my backpack, with my Apple Vision Pro and my MetaQuest 3 with all this stuff on it, and I first show his wife because I know that what the reaction's going to be, and they have a beautiful home right on the side. They have this nice area, and I knew that outdoor kitchen was going to be right there. And his wife was like, "Oh, Darren, this is a big mistake. I want this kitchen right here, right now, and I want that pool." And then Darren's like, "What is this?" So anyway, he puts it on. So long story short, we walk around Danville, which is like a little mini Silicon Valley. All of his friends are like ex-Google, NVIDIA, and so forth. And so I'm showing everybody, just having a blast. And that's really, the connection that we made, and he became extremely interested, and it was good timing too. So anyway, that's the story of how this all kind of came together with Darren, and his experience and knowledge at leadership roles and so forth, and the fact that I'm into these two technologies really heavily. It's been a privilege and an honor just to be able to ride alongside this and learn a lot. And as I like to say, bringing Silicon Valley to Silicon Bayou, which I think we need to coin that. I did buy the .ai, so but anyway, the thing in front of us now is like, how do we bring this technology and do it the right way in Louisiana? And the flywheel that you showed before is a very important part, because a lot of the VC people that I'm talking to right now, they're like, hey, we're pumping in money to these companies, and then either they're an older company and nobody wants to take over and they get bought out and they leave, or startups start up and then they get bought out and they leave. How do we get them to stay? So we're obviously very excited about the initiatives with the LED, about the other VC firms to match that, and we're also very excited about some other private equity firms that want to purchase or invest in companies for them to stay. Very excited about that. So with the leadership of Darren, and by the way, we're poaching his butt from that LA to this LA. We're bringing him over here. He's already looking for a house, so right.
I like Covington.
But I'm very excited to be a part of this and to help Louisiana become a leader in this technology, because I think it is, in my opinion, it's going to be bigger than the Industrial Revolution. It's going to change the way we do everything, and I want it done the right way, with all the safeguards that come along with it. So anyway, thank y'all.
Yeah, thank you. And then I gotta share this, which is a very cool story. So yeah, I didn't see the headset, then I see the headset, then I get introduced to the creator of the Vision Pro, right? And I tell Jeremy, hey, you gotta come down. You gotta show the creator of the Vision Pro. He's like, what are you talking about? Creator of the Vision Pro puts it on, sees the technology, built here, offers to buy the company in 20 minutes. I kid you not. We're like, whoa, we gotta figure things out. There's like 3 of us, like, you know, but that fast. And that's technology, right? And to see that was incredible. But Jeremy's even like, hey, I want it to be, you know, here. That was a big piece. He's like, I'm not flying out. Maybe I'll accommodate coming out for like, you know, a few days or like maybe a week every 2 months or something. But it was great to hear it again from him, right? But unbelievable technology that you're showing the creator of. The best part is he also crashed the headset, which the creator said couldn't happen. So I'm sure he has like the biggest smile, just like, bro.
Guys, this isn't just a crash, it was a power recycle from an app, which they were like, that's impossible. And they had to call a few engineers to say, you guys.
Oh, they called him in. It was an at-home work day. They're like, get in here now. We got this guy who just crashed our headset coming out from Baton Rouge. And they're like, what?
He did tell them how to fix it, so.
Yeah, we gave him a freebie. But yeah, so the next piece. So we talked about like business use cases, selling, startups. You know, a lot of people say founder-led sales. That's not a negative word. It's just, again, you're so tied to your product that there's gaps and you're not gonna see what's going on. So that's why I wanted Julian here, who's like just an incredible salesman, to talk about it. So I'll let you go through the list and we can interact on that.
Sure. Well, first off, it's great to be up here with you, Darren. Darren and I have our careers, we've been working together 25 years now.
He was there with the remote control.
I actually hired Darren for his first job out of college. People tell me I have an eye for spotting talent. Who would have known? He's far exceeded what I ever dreamed of. So at any rate, one of the amazing experiences I've had is not only working with Darren, but starting out in that startup space and seeing the challenges you have in going to market. And one of the biggest challenges is that founders, again, not bagging on you, but have this belief that I've got the greatest technology, therefore I'm going here. And that's really not the case. It takes the ability to get out, speak to the customer, and find how you want to grow your baby. What university you want it to go to, what should it study, where's it going to go on from there. And I think, Darren, that's one of the biggest parts of this, is you can have the greatest technology, but unless you can find the right use cases and business impact, you really don't have anything.
I completely agree. We have a cool use case too, that's on the inverse. So we can dive into that. Yeah, like even MVP technology, right? If you get it to a minimal viable product, and you have people that can sell, that can market, it's GTM collectively, right? Your go-to market. There's multiple pieces involved in that. Awareness, educating customers, right? Like, what if they need white glove support? Like you have to be on site. Like, are you prepared to talk about that as a founder? They're like, no, my technology just works. And you're like, no, it's not. You're just sticking it on a ship, and there's salt water, and your server's gonna have a hard time. But we can talk about a real use case, because I, with several other people, hacked together a minimal viable product, and he was actually able to sell it, and it kind of worked. So I think that'd be cool to share that story.
Yeah, again, this is, gosh, the second startup I was involved with, a company called Sentient. And started off with an incredible product that was about trading and automating that process and using AI to pick the right stocks and make those moves at the right time. We had to pivot though. That became something where we started to look at AI and applying that to retail and eliminating the need for tags, for example. And we had this incredible MVP, but it didn't have a home. It didn't have a specific use case. And so what we did was we went out and just toured the country, the world, and we found a spot with Zappos. Zappos had this incredible head of UI that wanted to create a whole new experience. Shopping without using words, just by clicking on images. And what we're able to do is take that and now apply this technology to a specific use case. So for example, with tags, you know, if you're buying let's say you're a woman, you're buying a set of heels. You get ones with velvet, a certain red hue. Well, now you're checking out, maybe you want to get a clutch. Well, that might be presented to you, but it's actually gonna match the specific hue and texture of another product by another brand. And that was a game changer. We were able to sell that minimal viable product for over $1 million a year in ARR for the first deal that we did as a company. And I think that was just an incredible experience, because how we did it was we listened to Zappos. We listened to what they wanted, what their head of UX was looking for, not what we thought was the right thing. And that's the game changers, the ability to open your mind and look for and be ready for that paradigm shift and to make that pivot.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's a lot of hack and go, oh, we gotta get to QA, but we gotta get to the operating system, and him and I nerd out on AI all the time. Chris Mahoney over here. So let me switch. This is the big picture. This is like, you're gonna hear a lot about AI. That's why for my keynote, I didn't wanna go too deep into implementations and such, but I will be around. I think we could give him maybe an extra 5 minutes or something. Like, yes, the dean goes, yeah, woo, okay. So, again, if you go out and you're like, well, where do I go to get this? Where do I go to get that? Like, how do I get my data? Like, there's these things called vector databases, and there's so many different things you have to figure out. So Chris and the team said, you know what, we're gonna put it all in one spot. No one's done it before. You can even use like up to like, what, 3, 4, 5 models, compare, benchmark. We even pulled down Louisiana data on, you know, or Austin. We pulled down all their stop signs. And we started analyzing the effectiveness of their, stop lights.
Traffic.
But I'll let you go over kind of these 4, and then we'll go to Q&A.
Sure. Yeah, so agentic OS, probably the most loaded term that you could ever see right now. People are really interested in multiple agents being able to work together to solve problems you don't even know you have, right? Or your customers have, right? So my original background is in software development, so full stack JavaScript engineering. And what I wanted to do was be able to use something like a Copilot in GitHub, VS Code, GitHub Copilot, to evaluate, you know, a lot of repositories I was looking at for the first time if I was working with a new group of people. I don't want to feed that trade secret, heavy IP, sensitive information into OpenAI through Azure, right? Unless I get permission, and I'm never going to, from a customer if I'm going to work for them. So I immediately moved into understanding equivalents to things like assistants I could use, and one of those was a clone of Google Copilot called Continue. And what that allowed me to do was local inference, literally in my house, right? Undisclosed location. But inference in my house that I can hit from that iPad right now, on my phone, from the hotspot last night, from free airport Wi-Fi, that was a great test, secure tunnel, those sorts of things. What can you do with that sort of system? Now you can actually take that information and it's as secure as you are responsible for baking it, right? Corporate memory up here, the first one is basically you have a corporate memory right now if you're in a large organization of any sort or a small organization. That memory is evolving, right? People are learning things in your organization. People are leaving with that information. And if you can't capture it, and this has always been a business problem for a long time, that's something that you can intelligently do by giving them a personal or a departmental assistant, right? And kind of mirror the organization with those sorts of things. Convergence here is specifically to the point that all of these tools are converging really fast, right? And the risk there as a developer or just an evaluator or user of these technologies is your risk is something's going to change tomorrow. And the system that you sat on becomes irrelevant overnight. I'm sure plenty of people have seen that happen. As these things accelerate, it's going to get incredibly more interesting. And that's where, well, the air gap's great. I spoke to that one. You're not getting to Carl at all. And also that sensitive information is locked. I can securely talk to, you know, my instance at home from here and be fully confident that nobody on this network is going to read what I'm inferring. And Darren made this point, people are going to have really, really sensitive queries. And, you know, so now we use it internally at home, you know, just to learn to make food or something like that. But I do ask it a lot of things that I would not ask an external cloud service, right? So fast evaluation to this point is really the ability to not rest your laurels on one service, one cloud platform, one set of solutions. The ability to have a general OS, which is just what it is, where you're de-risked because you have the ability to spin up a version of that service and integrate it with, say, an open clone of a ChatGPT or a proxy for LLMs to protect from having direct inference available on the internet. These are things I've thought about really strongly just for my own purposes, because the first question that I got when I ran a repository through to evaluate this new code base I was going to work with a few years ago, a couple years ago now. The first question I got was, are you telling me that you just ran our sensitive code base, that's debatable, through a public cloud service? Because they're training on that information, right? And so my answer was, no. I found out about local AI, and what's starting to happen with the convergence, and I think this is to the point about the OS, is you're de-risked because you can always decide that either a tool became insecure, okay, we chop that off, right? A tool became replaced by something else that's incredible, add that on. You have the ability to use local inference. You have the ability to get permission to use cloud services. And that's kind of the importance of what we can do with these sorts of things.
Yes, and he named it Carl.
And it's Carl.
So I want to give context there. I think our next, Q&A. How much time we got? Take a few. Oh, cool. That was a lot to digest, so any questions that folks have, please.
We have a microphone in the back.
Oh, sweet.
So if anybody has any questions, raise your hand and Danielle will bring you the mic.
Oh, come on, don't be shy.
No, it means we did that good.
So
You could have yelled it.
are you running an open source model in your house?
Yeah, so several. Basically, multiple versions of Llama for Meta, the Gemma, and some of the smaller models from Google, some really small models, Granite from IBM. Those are all sort of in this same ability to get some inference and chat with it, but also benchmark those against each other and actually compare the responses that you get. And that's really helpful when a new model comes out. Say you have about 5 minutes to have to implement it in that set of, in the LLM proxy. Put it next to the one that you've been using. Much better answer, great, we're gonna start using this one. So those base models are platforms to stand up an agent that has a customized system prompt, things like that.
One more question. So what GPUs are you using?
This is,
Obviously.
right now I use Apple products. I use
We have Mac Mini. Kid you
Mac
not.
Mini.
M4 Mac Mini and 64 gigabytes of available shared memory, which is just compared to PC hardware that has cool LEDs and flashing lights and a great graphics card gaming computer. That clean M4 is just sitting there doing its job, and having 64 gigs of video RAM available means you can run 32B, 70B models. And it's beautiful.
Cool, thanks.
Hi, we have a lot of faculty at LSU and the other campuses who dabble in AI, but they have specialties in like vet, healthcare, business, education. They have these great ideas and they have minimal, maybe data science background or AI a little bit, but they need help from the experts. So we have been mulling some ideas on how to connect everyone together, especially in the institution. I just wanted to know, do y'all have any ideas?
That one, you probably don't want to be, like you have SMEs, right? Remember I said critical thinkers? Like you have the subject matter experts. That is invaluable, literally invaluable. So I would think you'd probably want like a solution where it is on the university grounds. Like you can connect through VPN at home or something, but that would be the best way to do it. But then also, Andrew does it for students, he should do it for faculty. He teaches prompt engineering, which I highly recommend you try out. It's it's a good way to get to like answers, and then you can start learning like, oh, well, I can teach it this, and then I can add data here, right? You can even upload manuals. Like there's so many capabilities that just aren't documented, right? So I told Dr. Schwartz that maybe he should be offering that class to faculty. I don't know if he wants to do that. He's like smiling in the back. No, but seriously, I think doing like an air-gapped kind of piece, you should see Carl. It is pretty cool, but it's something where you guys can go. It has another really cool feature called flows. So you can say, I work in genomics, and I have these 3 scientists. And you actually can provide data to these 3 scientists, and they will argue amongst one another and work on conflict resolution. It is amazing, but it's based on knowledge that you provide, right? And subject matter experts. I'd be happy to talk more about that, because that is what we're talking about with the knowledge, right? Like going back, if it's gonna let me go back. Maybe you cut me off. Oh no, that's corporate memory. That's educational memory, right? And I think that's a huge piece. Like that is, for me, that's my passion for AI. It's not losing that knowledge, because, people are learning every day. But then also to have it for yourself and for your team to use, right? It doesn't need to be provided to everyone else. If you want to, you can provide pieces. If not, you keep it for yourself. or your team to advance, right? That was a really good question, though. Oops.
Yeah, and it's also interesting that to the point about flows, you basically say you have a supervisor worker system, right? So the supervisor has one job and it has information about what its workers' titles are, and that's it. From there, it infers who the next agent is that should be part of that conversation. And I think in terms of that corporate memory, having that mirror departments in your organization and giving it to individuals as their own personal agent.
Can we just share? Well, there was a funny one. The supervisor doesn't know anything, it just kind of monitors or just observes. But then we added a janitor, right? Because you might need a janitor.
Yep.
Of course, they play an important role. And the janitor will pop up to the supervisor and be like, "Hey, I got to clean up some stuff over here." And the supervisor doesn't really know what's going on. It's kind of like, C-suite or something. I'm not gonna.
One thing I do want to add though too, into this point, and I think it's very important. If anybody is going to start working with you to build models and so forth, the very first thing that you have to do is a discovery on your data, and it needs to be vetted. It's the same thing that we did in the past with working with large amounts of data, garbage in, garbage out. So it's very, very important, and that's one of the. It's a very tough task because your data is everywhere. So if you do approach this, start gathering where your data is, seeing if it's vetted or not, and where it's located. Create a spreadsheet, say this data is here, this data is there, and so forth, and have people vet it, because you don't want to go down the road of spending tens, hundreds, millions of dollars training on something that doesn't make sense and you can't use it.
Yeah, the validation is so incredibly important. I had come in to just really initially learn about these LLM systems, and to have the ability to benchmark responses to very hard questions or training sets like ARC prize questions. It's clearly out of the realm of just running it at my house, but you need to know that data is validated, because that's always been how large data migrations have gone for these organizations.
So I'd say forget technology for a minute and think about, this is something my father ingrained in me growing up, is you must respect one for their shortcomings, for without them they would not have their longcomings. So think about that for a second. When you're someone in data science, someone in business, how do you get those folks connected so you don't have a jack of all trades, master of none? You have all of these folks coming together, minds that actually make that technology into a product that can be commercialized. And that's something I think gets missed a lot of the time.
Because sometimes it's not the knowledge that they know, it's more of like the experience that they've gained on the nuances of the job. But I think a discovery process and again, vetting the data with them. And one idea that I had out of this is creating like a legacy AI where, you're retiring, but it's like, hey, you want to rent my brain, I can make a little extra cash while I'm retiring, so I'll create an LLM for you. So that might be something that we might want to champion in the educational institutions, create things like that, because that's a very important part. And also that goes for the companies, right? The VC firms that want to keep Louisiana companies here, part of the problem is they lose that senior level and the company kind of falls apart or they get bought out and leaving. So that's a great point. So